What's up, everyone? Welcome to a Card Fellas Shorty Show. We're talking about some football today. It's something I brought up previous show, and I'm kind of eating my words here, and it's because of you, Chris. But when Bowman U came out, I think we talked about it on the show, and I brought it up, like I said, a couple weeks ago. I was intrigued. And then I saw the draft class that was coming in this year, and I was like, less interested. Ripped a few boxes, and I was like, all right, I don't think this is going to be, something I'm going to chase. Then, Chris, you and I chatted, and we kind of ended up on this conversation that ended with, are we going to regret not buying more Bowman U blaster boxes? They're $19.99,
right?
Pretty readily available. So I'm going to pose the question to you, are we going to regret not buying more Bowman U blaster football boxes when it's all said and done?
I'm going to say it depends on how fast you're able to sell. Because I think in 5 years, this isn't going to be an exciting set. But what I do think is in 3 months, this is going to be a really exciting set. And I think, we still see it when we go to Target. I've actually got a couple of retail run videos I got to put up on the channel. But I still see it at Target all the time. Like you say, they're $19.99, so they're really affordable. I think they're still on the website as well, so you can order them pretty quickly. But yeah, I think a lot of people see stuff on the shelves all the time. They go, it must not be very good. Every time I go to Target, I see it. But what I think is going to happen, and I've told you this, I believe that college football is the number 2 sport in America. The NFL is king.
Yes.
And, college football certainly is more popular than baseball right now. I believe it's the number 2 sport in America. And I think that come September, it's not going to be the Kenny Pickett that's in Bowman. It's going to be the C.J. Strouds and the Tyler McKees and those kind of guys that people are going to want to chase. And the other thing, we look at these cards and we go, well, and this is going to be another topic later on for us, but the draft class of 2021 was looked at as this great draft class. And now in the NFL, they're only a year in, but we're not sure. And a lot of these guys may not be good NFL quarterbacks, but they are going to put up big numbers in September of 2022. And if we're ready to pounce on that when it happens, I think you can cash in with some cards that are very affordable, very easily gettable in retail. And if you're looking for something that will be popular to sell or popular to trade in September, I think people are going to be looking for this stuff come September when college football starts.
Yeah, you changed my mind when we had this conversation, and I kind of flipped it back, and I was like, boy, we should share this with our listeners, because I think it makes a lot of sense. So I think one of the common mistakes that people made with this product, myself included, is we only looked at this year's draft class. We looked at the Kenny Pickett's, we looked at the Sam Howells, we looked at the Malik Willis's, and we were just like, okay, yeah, I got those cards. I opened 2 boxes. And I pulled those guys, and I'm like, they're okay. But then I started pulling guys that I hadn't heard of. And that's where you, again, brought it to my attention. You're like, okay, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I didn't pull those guys, so I thought it was an unsuccessful opening. But then you got me thinking, and you were like, wait, let me give you some more names. You were like, okay, Tanner McKee, Stanford, quarterback, potential top 10 pick. So before we get into these names, I do want to say the 2023 draft is shaping up to be the draft year of the quarterbacks. There are potentially 7 or 8 that might go in the first round. So there's a lot of potential in those quarterbacks coming up, and they are in this Bowman set. So I think we have to treat this like Bowman baseball a little bit.
Right.
Those first Bowman cards aren't going to pay off right away. And I think that happens, when that doesn't happen, I think the blaster boxes are looked at as less valuable. And that's what we're talking about here. And that's kind of the trap we went down. And so Tanner McKee of Stanford, Will Levis of Kentucky. I don't even know these guys yet. They're not household names. They're probably known in their universities and their states and their communities, but for me, I don't even know how to pronounce some of these guys' names. Tyler Van Dyke from the U, another potential. Those guys that I've mentioned, there's 5 potential top 10 picks. They're all in this set. They're not coming to the NFL this year. They're going to college still for at least one more year. Malik Cunningham, Louisville, potential first rounder. One guy who doesn't have a card, Devin Leary from NC State, doesn't have a card. Then there's the Clemson quarterback, DJU. I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name. Again, don't really know who he is. Jake Hayner, Fresno State, potential first-round sleeper guy. Spencer Rattler, we know what happened to him, went from Oklahoma to South Carolina. He's in this set. And then there's the Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma who's taking over. He's in this set. So when you start looking at these names, they're either going to be high first-round picks next year or to your point, Chris, and this is the interesting part that I hadn't thought of because I'm always thinking ahead to the NFL is watching these guys chase the Heisman.
Right.
And they might get a bump from that because what you're saying is college football is sport number 2 in this country, and people are going to want to get those Malik Cunningham cards if they think the guy from Louisville is going to win the Heisman. And so you're kind of watching these cards through the college season, and then maybe if you hold on to them for the draft season, and then their potential NFL career. So right. I think there's a long-term play here that makes these blaster boxes for 1999 really, really intriguing at this point.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, and again, it's something that we see all the time, and I think people, when you see that stuff all the time, you think, oh, that's not valuable. I don't need to get in on that because it's everywhere. But I really do believe that this stuff is going to be a hot commodity in the fall, and especially leading up. If we have a Heisman race where there's 4 or 5 quarterbacks competing for it, this stuff is going to be crazy in November as things get going and people go looking for it. It's going to be fun, and I think what will happen, and again, so with the NIL, the name, image, likeness stuff, there's no logos for teams on it. You just got the player photos. So, that's why Bowman can kind of do this. But it'll be interesting to see if maybe, in the future, Panini starts adding some of these cards to their normal sets too, because I think people are going to be looking for this stuff. And I know Leaf came out with they've been building similar sets. If you go and start looking up Tanner McKee autographs, you're going to find Leaf cards and those types of guys. But so it's not a first time, but just Bowman, I think, is another. People are going to buy Bowman before they buy Leaf.
Yes.
And, having the other thing that we haven't mentioned yet, though, is when you start opening these boxes, you get a refractor every other pack. So
yes,
it's a pink refractor. So when you're looking at singles, those pink ones are usually going to be the most affordable kind. But you're getting a pretty card. It's not like you got to dig hard to be able to get some of these things. You get pretty cards in the boxes as well. I'm going to mispronounce DJ Ugalele's last name. I know that's not how you say it, but that's how I read it. But what's interesting about him, actually, there's a very cool, basically it's a show that's on YouTube that kind of followed him in high school. And he was the number 1 quarterback in the nation throughout his high school years. There was an NFL. So he went to school in one of the big time schools in California that's always playing for the national championship. And he actually had a pro quarterback coach working with him in 8th grade. So he was one of these guys that just came up as, this guy is the next big thing.
Yes.
And last year at Clemson, he kind of had the setback, but I got a feeling that he's going to have a big year this year. That's going to be my prediction. And I think if you can get in on some of those cards right now on the floor, I think you can do well as we go into deeper into the fall. There he is.
Yeah, I got a pink prism. So Chris, it's funny because here's I opened 2 boxes, and here's kind of the stack right here. Mm-hmm. This is the stack right here. They're about half. These are all quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to get a ton of quarterbacks. Like that's the one downfall to this. I would say the one thing that you'd probably be a little bit cautious about. you're going to get a lot of these quarterbacks. And so that tells me that there's going to be a lot of them out there. So if you can figure out the cards that are, you know, a little bit more unique, that have the pink, you know, the pink prism cards, the numbered cards. And you and I have talked about this as well. And we went out, and one of the strategies was, let's go on eBay and see if we can buy some of these prospects, you know, numbered cards or auto cards for Bowman for, you know, relatively cheap prices. And what'd you find?
I found out that other people are doing the same thing.
Exactly. We were not as early on this as we had hoped, and so
Right.
the prices were actually really, really high, in my opinion, for some of these guys. Obviously, the Bryce Youngs and the CJ Stroud that are known commodities, that are like, people are considering them top 5 quarterbacks in the next draft, Heisman favorites, blah blah blah. But the guys that we were mentioning, you know, the Tanner McKees and the you know, the Tyler Van Dykes and the Will Levis. I mean, those numbered cards were going for way more than I had anticipated. So, you know, people are already on this, and it tells me that there's going to be more people chasing this. So the kind of the strategy that I'm looking at, and Chris, and you might be different, you might be the same, as finding those numbered cards, because I think these base cards, like that half stack of the blasters being quarterbacks, like the base cards and even the pink prism cards are probably going to be common. They're not going to be rare at all. So if you're looking to get guys that you want to build for, you know, build on, or speculative for the future, and then possibly get them graded, I'd start looking at the numbered cards and start tracking those. That's one approach. The second approach is, I would hold some of these blaster boxes and not crack them, and buy them for $19.99 and just kind of see what unfolds with this, with this checklist. Because I was about to say with this draft class, but you can't, because there's guys that are still prospects. And so what I would do is hold this blaster box, and just see what happens, see how it plays out with this checklist. And if nothing else, I promise you, you will be able to sell this for $20 in a couple of years. I have a feeling that no matter what happens in the hobby, somebody's going to give you $20 for that, because there's going to be a lot of first-year Bowman guys that do eventually make it in the NFL. And so that's kind of my strategy right now. I've stopped cracking these, and started targeting some of the raw cards at shows or on eBay, and then I'm buying boxes for $19.99 and kind of squirreling them away and just kind of seeing how this checklist plays out. What do you think of that play?
Yeah, I really like it. I think if you can go to shows, a lot of these guys are going to be in the quarter box at shows. A lot of these cards are going to be in the quarter box. And I think eBay is a different animal with a lot of things, just because people know that there's people that are looking for that specific card, and they can take, you know, a pretty common base card and put it up for $2. Where if you go and find that at a card show, you're probably going to find it in the quarter bin, you know, because the reality is, when you sell a single card, and I sell a lot of low-end single cards, when you sell a single card, you'll lose basically 65 cents in fees. And then it's going to cost you anywhere from 53 to 73 cents to ship it. And you're going to have to put it, you know, maybe 10 cents and stuff to put the card in. So, you know, to sell a card for $1, you're going to lose money. You know,
Right.
Even when you're at the bottom end, you really got to be selling for $2 just to make anything.
Or
So
lot it up, right?
those cards are going to be quarter cards at shows. So I think if you can go to shows and find a lot of the stuff, and I know a few different dealers at some of the shows that I've gone to, that this is exactly the kind of stuff that they carry. And I think if you can take what I used to take in a fantasy football strategy, which was just get as many guys as you can and hope that 4 of them hit or whatever, you know, I think that's a good strategy here, especially if you're at shows. You can find these cards really inexpensively, is just kind of do that and throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and hope a few things stick, and you're good to go. But I think it's a fun set. The cards, you know, they look cool. And again, if you're going to crack boxes, you're going to get some refractors, even though they're the pink refractors that are more common. But kind of a lot of nostalgia in there. They've got the 2000 Bowman design, just a lot of neat stuff. And I just think the big thing is there's just so many people that enjoy college football.
Yeah.
And to be able to kind of mix cards with college football, I think it's going to be a winner. And I just don't think that people realize it. I mean, obviously there are some people who do, but I don't think the masses have figured it out yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned there's one of the throwback to that Bowman era. There was one rookie that came out of a card like this. I can't remember what his name was. Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Because that one's it. And they got these golden boys as well as other ones. So it's just, neat cards. And like you said, I mean, in the blasters, you get those pink prisms. So they're not as rare as it's funny because it's not as rare as just like the regular, a silver prism like this one right here. And here's a Tyler Van Dyke. And this was a card. I don't even have it sleeved.
Mm-hmm.
I pulled this card out just for the show. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, you just know that I'm holding up some of these cards, and all these cards were sitting just, kind of in a box without any sleeves on them. And because I had never heard of the quarterbacks, I've never heard of these players. And so I just assumed my card collecting past has always told me, if you haven't heard of this guy, he's probably not very good.
Right.
But that's so different with this Bowman set. They haven't, these guys haven't had their full coming out parties yet. They're NFL kind of, they haven't been talked about coming into the NFL. Like, think about Malik Willis. If you would have told me Malik Willis's name a year ago prior to the draft, I probably wouldn't have heard of him.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, leading up to the draft, that's all you heard about was him. And then you heard about Kenny Pickett. I mean, I know if you're in these communities where these football, if you're college football, like diehard, these, but I'm a casual observer of college football. I don't know who the quarterback is of which team. But at the same time, once you start talking about it in the NFL draft and prospects and, then all of a sudden they become known commodities to me. And I think most people in the hobby, because it's so hard to keep track of college football these days. I mean, it was hard enough before the transfer portal. Now it's close to impossible because, these guys are moving constantly. And so keeping track of all these guys is really, really difficult. And I think that's part of why, we shunned Bowman at first, or at least myself. And I think other people did as well. But if you can have some patience with this set and this checklist, I think it will benefit you in the long run. I'm not saying it's going to make you rich. I'm not going to say this is the meal ticket, but I'm saying you could probably make some money on that 1999 investment. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, the reality is people in Alabama care a lot more about college football than the NFL. If you live in Lexington, Kentucky, you know who Will Levis is. And he's a lot more important to you than most of the people in the NFL. If you live in Miami right now, even in Miami, the U, I would say, is probably a tougher ticket than the Dolphins right now.
That's a good point.
That may change soon, but right now that's the way that life is. So, I think in these regional communities where college football is a big deal, right now Georgia football is more important than the Falcons. That's just the reality. Nobody cares about the Falcons right now because they're just not good. And point at the guy that you really want to pay money to go see on the Falcons.
Yeah.
He's not there, but going to watch Georgia football is a big deal. So I think that these little pockets of the world that a lot of people don't think about. A lot of people don't think about Alabama on a daily basis, but that's a big deal. College football is a big deal there, and everybody is more than willing to spend some money to get the stuff that's going to say Alabama, roll tide,
roll tide, roll tide. So hey, listeners, viewers, this is conversations Chris and I have offline, and then we kind of bring it to you guys. And so let us know what you think. I know there's a lot of people ripping Bowman U. We've had some comments on some of our previous videos where we've mentioned it, and there was one comment that said that they bought 2 hobby boxes and did pretty well. So some people have had success out there. I think there's probably a lot of these similar cards out there. I will say the one card that I did pull that was unique out of the 2 blasters, I got a purple refractor, which I think is 1 out of 256 cards or 256 packs. So it is rare. It was Sauce Gardner, so a top 5 pick. Unfortunately, he's a cornerback and not a quarterback prospect. But other than that, I haven't pulled any number cards, any autos, or anything like that out of the 2 blasters that I've opened. So it's not like you're pulling numbered cards constantly. Even though I showed that half stack of quarterbacks, most of them were the paper version, which if you're going to open a blaster box or 2, you're probably going to get it. So if you're going to really go after the number cards, I would recommend buying those raw, because chasing them could turn into kind of a losing proposition when it comes to how much money you're spending to chase those cards.
And I would say that you're going to want to get more excited about getting a guy that didn't get drafted.
Yes,
people get drafted, because the guys who were drafted are going to have plenty of NFL cards to go after.
Absolutely.
So you want to get the guys that are not in the NFL, I think, is going to be the thing to do, because the NFL product's going to be more popular than the Bowman stuff for people who are drafted. So,
wow, yeah, that's a great point. Well, hopefully everybody enjoys this. Again, let us know what you're thinking about Bowman U if you're a buyer. We know basketball Bowman U is coming out soon, or at least in the works. And so we'll be talking about that as well. Does Bowman U get you excited? That's kind of, are we at this point now where we should be snapping these up? And that's kind of the conversation we're having. And, if you can buy 3 boxes right now on Target.com, that might be something that's worth that $60 in our opinion. But love to hear from you, and hopefully people chime in and let us know what they're thinking as well. But no, good conversation. And again, this is stuff we talk about offline. We just like to bring it on to the Card Fellas show. Whether you're getting us on YouTube, whether you're getting us on the podcast, we appreciate you guys listening. Another plug for our Wednesday night show. We're always live. Always. We try to be always live at 10:30 Central Time on our YouTube channel. We have a lot of fun. We love the comments and interaction. So no matter how you're getting us, we hope you enjoy it. We will hopefully continue to listen as we throw topics at you, because we know we're not going to run out of them. So hopefully our listeners stick around and hear what we have to say.
Yeah, plenty of things to talk about. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. We'll talk to you next time.